And in light of the 3 attacks in 3 hours on 3 continents overseas, shows us that ISIS is not just regionalized like the administration says, only in Iraq and Syria, but rather demonstrating it's a global threat, that they can conduct external operations, and they're very savvy at doing that on the internet. We've rolled up more ISIS followers in the United States just this year than we have in the government trying to counter radicalization in the United States.
All right, folks. Jed Babbin, columnist, Washington Times, former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for President George H.W. Bush, and author of the BDS War Against Israel, joins us. Jed, welcome. You know, we have the warning over the 4th of July holiday that ISIS may attack because it coincides with Ramadan and all that. And we saw these horrendous attacks last week. It just seems to be building and building, and it just seems that it's inevitable that something's going to happen here.
Well, of course it is, and it's not just ISIS. There's an awful lot of other bad guys out there. I don't think we should make too much of ISIS, although they are a considerable threat. They're no more a threat than Al-Qaeda or all the other people that are running around there trying to kill us. And the administration has really not done a whole lot to stop any of them.
No, and you know, an interesting poll, the Clarion Project put out a poll today, or a survey, if you will, saying that ISIS throughout the Arab world has 48, I think the number was 48 million supporters.
Well, I'm not surprised by that, but 48 million, I mean, again, a lot of these supporters, and whether there's people who are funding them, whether people are just saying that they support them, whether they're people who are actually giving them other kinds of support or recruiting for them. I mean, there's an awful lot of different groups involved here. And again, we're focusing only on ISIS, Steve, when we ought to be focusing on the regional problem. And, you know, ISIS is a danger. I mean, there could be attacks in the United States. There could be ISIS-related attacks in the United States. But, you know, you look at what's going on. I mean, it's not entirely clear to me even that the attack in Tunisia was an ISIS attack. It might have been ISIS-related, but what the heck does that mean?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. All right, I want to switch gears for a second here. Is it my understanding, is it true that you are a victim of the Chinese hacking that we've heard so much about?
Well, the good folks at the Office of Personnel Management have sent me a letter which says that I might be one of the victims. You know, there's something like 4 million or 18 million people who were hacked or had their personal information possibly revealed. They'll get back to me at some point 10 years from now and tell me, oh yeah, oh by the way, the Chinese have everything since your birth. But who knows? I mean, it's one of those things that OPM really needs to be held responsible for. And I'm really kind of tired of people like this character, Archuleta, the head of OPM, saying, well, there's nobody really responsible. She ought to be fired just for starts.
Yeah, nobody's in this administration is ever responsible for anything, are they?
No, of course not. Well, that would be accountability. We can't have that in the government. Good knowledge.
Well, we have it in the government, and the media demands it when it's a Republican administration.
Well, of course. I mean, Steve, this is a double standard that we live with. I mean, you and I live with it every darn day. But that's what happens. When the Republicans are in power, the media are after them and, you know, really are very antagonistic. And when the Democrats are, well, they can get away with anything. I mean, you look at what's going on right now. You have in the paper today a story about how the State Department is refusing to produce a memorandum of the conversation between Hillary Clinton and Obama during the Benghazi attack. Now,
yeah, they produced it, but they redacted everything on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they put out the top lines. This is the record of the call. I mean, there's something going on here. There's always been something going on here. That's the biggest cover-up that this administration has ever done. But yeah, there's a lot of competition for that title. There's other cover-ups going on all the time.
All right, now Iran. We find out today, which is just ridiculous to call anything a deadline with this administration or a red line with this administration. The June 30th deadline for Iran deal has been pushed back again. Do you think that this will be signed?
Eventually, it will be, because I think they're going to push back the deadline until they get a deal. And they're only going to get a deal when they've given up enough that the Ayatollahs say, well, okay, we've got them where we want them, and we're going to take the deal. I mean, this thing could go on for another year. It could go on for another year and a half. The only deadline that really is to this deal is Election Day 2016.
And you know, I guess it's not even news anymore, Jed, when we read time after time that we're capitulating and capitulating, and Iran's making more demands, and Iran is ratcheting up the rhetoric, anti-American rhetoric, you know, in proximity to sitting down at the table. It's just been the MO from beginning to right up until this point.
Well, it is, and it's going to continue to be. And you think of the things that we are not asking for, that we've taken off the table. I mean, for example, we're not asking them or demanding that they stop sponsoring terrorism. I mean, they're the central terrorist power in the world. And we're not even saying, well, you got to retard or reduce the amount of terrorism you're sponsoring. It's ludicrous. The whole thing is centered around some idea that we're going to stop them from obtaining nuclear weapons with this deal. Obama has already said that the so-called breakout time would be reduced to 0. That's the time at which, from the deadline of the agreement, whatever it is, from the end of the agreement to the time they can produce a nuclear weapon. And he says, the president said it's reducing that time to 0. So why are we even doing this?
And of course, another big issue that's not come up and is not being addressed is the prisoners that Iran is holding, U.S. prisoners, including a Marine and the pastor, Saeed Abedini. It's just, it's disgusting and disgraceful.
It is, and that's the best thing you can say about it.
Yeah.
It is amazing to me that any American government could even pretend to have the America's national security interest in mind in doing something like this.
Jed, good to talk to you, sir. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks. Good to talk to you.
All right, Jed Babbin, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, it's going to be Gimme 5. And then at 6 o'clock, Congressman Tim Yule's camp will join us. So don't go away.